Hello, and welcome to a Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness video, where today we will be completing the game with the Nincada line. And while not really festive as for the month of December, I thought it'd be fun to do anyway. And the thing about the Nincada line is that it is very different from many Pokemon lines. And that starts off right away with this chart. Now, Nincada has 31 HP, 45 attack, 90 defense, 30 special attack, 30 special defense, and 40 speed. And as you can see, it's a little confusing here, so I've tried to clean it up as the best I can. But Nincada itself, base form, gets a lot of normal bug ground moves, as well as a couple grass moves as well. And then when it evolves into Ninjask, it gets Aerial Ace and basically more of the same. But if it becomes Shedinja, it gets a whole bunch of ghost moves, including Dream Eater and Nightmare. And because Shedinja is genderless, only ninjas can get attract. And the other thing to note is that I put its leveling rate down at the bottom, and you can see it says erratic. That is the slowest leveling up rate in the entire game. So, with that being said, our Nincada in particular has a bashful nature, doing nothing. It's a neutral nature, which is honestly fine. It gets access to the Compound Eyes ability, which raises accuracy all around, so moves like Fury Swipes, which it gets later, will be practically 100% accurate. And then, according to Bulbapedia, it gets Scratch, Harden, Leech Life, and Sand Attack by level 10. So with that, let's go ahead and get right into it. And right away, the first trainer that we fight has the Nincada. And as you can see here, I am fairly weak, so this actually takes quite a while, but eventually I beat the Nincada. And I usually like to show this fight off just to show how a Pokemon's going to do throughout the early game, because usually if a Pokemon struggles here, it's not going to do very well later on. However, in this case, the Abra actually just continues to attack the Teddiursa, and so does the Horsey, so I actually kind of get through this fight scot-free. But there are a few things to note. For one, my damage output is really low, even with a stab super effective Leech Life into the Abra, which has pretty low defense. I wasn't able to take it down. And I'm not really doing that much damage to the Horsey either, and it could do a ton of damage to me because of my low special defense. Luckily, I'm not actually hit by any of the water guns, and a final scratch finishes it off. And then all that's left is the Shroomish. Now the Shroomish could still be a threat because it does have Effect Spore, which could poison, paralyze, or sleep me. But it doesn't happen, and in just one more Leech Life, I'm able to take it down. And at level 14, I finally get Fury Swipes, which is basically 100% accurate, and I teach that over Harden. And I decide to choose the Green Power Ranger this time because I have a pretty decent super effective move, and my type matchup is pretty decent towards it. And another thing to note is thank you so much for watching these videos, and if you have any Pokemon suggestions, consider putting them down below. And the other thing to note is if you saw the comment on the previous video that I put out, videos are going to be coming out less often for the foreseeable future. Some stuff came up and time is a little tight at the moment. So I hope you understand if some of these videos are a little late. And I'm really hoping to get out the Christmas video on the 25th. However, if it ends up taking longer than that, oops. Anyway, Nincada's a Pokemon that I've actually kind of wanted to do for a while. Specifically the trio of them, but I wasn't actually sure how to do it. Because usually Pokemon are very straightforward, they evolve into one another. However, this is a diverging path. And then I was reminded that this is a doubles game, and that I could just use both. I don't know why that didn't cross my mind at any point. But anyway, we're just about done with the first Power Ranger here, so I'm just going to, well, maybe not finish off the C-Dot, I guess it's going to take another hit. But because of Leech Life healing me, I'm able to outdo the amount of damage Pineco can do to me. And because of my high defense, it's not doing really much to me anyway. I get a lucky crit there, which might have been necessary to live, but I finish off Pineco and beat Green. And we go back to the tutor lady to go teach Mimic, and that's because the best move I have to hit ghosts is Leech Life, and they resist that, so I want to be able to copy their moves. And as it turns out, I'm too weak to really do anything in there, so I do a bit of training, and beat up another Nincada, and eventually I evolve into Ninjask, which is a pretty cool looking Pokemon, and unfortunately it does lose the ground typing and replaces with flying, which is much worse, but it gets double team here, which I teach over Sand Attack, because raising your evasiveness is better than lowering the target's accuracy. And then it also gets Fury Cutter, which I decide to teach over Leech Life, just because it doubles in power every time you use it. So eventually it becomes much stronger. And then it also gets the move Screech, which I'm just not going to teach, because I don't think it's really going to matter too much. And I wasn't sure how this worked. It seems I keep the same nature, but now I have Speed Boost, which raises my speed every turn. And of course, being evolved now, I get new stats. Ninjask has 61 HP, 90 attack, 45 defense, 50 special attack, 50 special defense, and 160 speed, which is incredibly fast. Nothing will ever outspeed me except for using priority moves. Unfortunately, that does mean that the other stats do kind of suffer because its defensive stats aren't great and it only hits kind of hard. Anyway, I had the same question about Shedinja as well. It seems to keep the same nature as well, and the same moves that I taught to Ninjask. However, it has the Wonder Guard ability, which makes me immune to everything that isn't super effective, which is insanely powerful. Anyway, Shedinja has 1 HP, 90 attack, 45 defense, 30 special attack, 30 special defense, and 40 speed. So it's really slow, hits pretty hard, but its defensive stats mean nothing because it's only got 1 HP anyway. So that's not great. However, Wonder Guard is an amazing ability, and we run into another Nincada. Now, one thing to notice that we're still using Fury Swipes, which isn't 100% accurate now that I've lost Compound Eyes. And we run into our first boss fight against Loverina. She leads with a Love Disc and a Beautifly, and Beautifly is Thief and takes down Shedinja. Okay, well that's not good. And I miss a Fury Swipes. I hit and take down the Beautifly. Level up. Out comes Roselia. Water Gun's really not doing that much damage to me. I miss another Fury Swipes and get hit with Poison Sting, get poisoned, and lose. So the big thing I need to do is have Shedinja actually outspeed, so I do a bit of leveling, and at level 25 I get Swords Dance, which I teach over Double Team, and we go back into the battle again. Fury Swipes to do quite a bit of damage to the Beautifly, and at this level I also outspeed it. Out comes Roselia, I use Fury Swipes into it, and take it down in a single set of Fury Swipes. Okay, that's really lucky. Out comes Delcatty. Love Disc uses Water Gun. Fury Swipes to do almost nothing to it. I go for Swords Dance, and I go for Fury Swipes. And Love Disc uses Charm, raising Shedinja's attack, which really doesn't matter because we're not setting him up. I go for Fury Swipes, doing quite a bit of damage to Delcatty. And now it's up to Shedinja, who gets one-shot by Shadow moves because they're all super effective. So Ninjask picks up the slack and finishes off the Love Disc in just a couple Fury Cutters. So we beat Loverina on the 5th attempt, which isn't too bad. And I also pick up the Focus Band, quite possibly the best item for Shedinja because it's a 10% chance to survive any hit. And then I run into the obligatory Mirabee. Hello Mirabee, how are you doing this day? Good to hear, Mirabee. I'll see you around. Anyway, at level 31, I finally get a half-decent move in Slash, and at the Real Gam Tower, I pick up my two favorite TMs, Hidden Power and Protect, and I'm going to teach Hidden Power right away to the Shedinja, and also Protect right away to the Shedinja, because some Pokemon will just auto-target it because it's at 1 HP, if it has a super effective move. So it's just useful to have. And then our Hidden Power type is Flying, which honestly isn't too bad. It's just unfortunate that it's only 33 base power. So it's pretty bad, but honestly it's kind of the best move that Shedinja's got that's accurate. Anyway, we go into the boss battle against Snattle. I use Protect on the first turn, and that's because the Quagsire has Rock Tomb, and it can choose to attack the Shedinja. Unfortunately, it goes for the Ninjask, doing quite a bit of damage to it because it's 4 times weak to it, and another Rock Tomb takes it down, and then all that's left is me against it. I use Hidden Power to take down the Quagsire. Out comes the Shadow Lunatone, but because all of the Shadow moves are super effective, I'm taken down fairly quickly. Okay, well there's a pretty easy way around this. I do quite a bit of leveling to get to level 38 so that I can get the move Shadow Ball, which is just going to be very effective against the Lunatone, so I go back into the battle once again. I go for Slash into the Quagsire and Shadow Ball to finish it off, which is a much better start. Out comes the Lunatone, who might actually outspeed me, I don't know yet. I go for Slash and Shadow Ball into it, just to make sure I'm able to take it down. I do outspeed, so it goes down. And then out comes Cast Form, which Cast Form's not really a threat, but unfortunately I can't actually hit it with Shadow Ball, so I go for Slash and Hidden Power into it, which takes it down. And then out comes Matang. Now I don't think Matang can actually hit me at all, but I go for Slash into it anyway, doing more than I thought it would, and a Shadow Ball finishes it off, and then all that's left is the Lantern, which makes it completely unlosable, because Lantern can't hit me with anything, and I beat Snaddle on the third attempt. We move on to Gonzap, who leads with an Electrode and a Nuzleaf. Now the Nuzleaf is always going to go for Fake Out on the first turn, and Electrode goes for Spark, paralyzing and doing quite a bit of damage to our Ninjask, which isn't great. I go for Slash into the Vileplume and Shadow Ball into the Nuzleaf, which definitely isn't the right move because Dark resists Ghost. I didn't realize that though. And I go down to Feint Attack. Okay, well that's a bit unfortunate. Ninjask is getting paralyzed multiple times in a row. Hyper Beams really aren't doing too much damage. And I get paralyzed again. And Slash hits doing a little over half. And a couple more Hyper Beams finish me off. Okay, well, it's pretty obvious I just need to teach Protect now. That way I can survive the first turn. So I go in, I use Protect and Shadow Ball. Nuzleaf uses Fake Out, and Electrode has Thief. Okay, well that's unfortunate. Anyway, on attempt number 8. Yes, it took a while. And that's because I just needed to have the Electrode attack the Ninjask on the first turn when he used Protect. Anyway, I go for Shadow Ball and Slash into the Nuzleaf, and that's because Slash will take down the Nuzleaf in a single hit, and because I can't take down the Whiscash in a single turn, it's nice to do that. Unfortunately, the Ninjask does get put to sleep, so I do need to call and Shadow Ball into the Whiscash this turn to finish it off. And then out comes Skarmory, which is his last Pokemon. So I go for Slash and Protect, because the Skarmory will use Aerial Ace against me. And then I go for a Slash and a Shadow Ball to do as much damage to Skarmory as I can before Shedinja goes down. It uses Aerial Ace against Shedinja, and it hangs on because of the Focus Band, which is really nice. Unfortunately, it gets put to sleep, but it does mean that I get to waste another of Skarmory's turns. Slash comes out, not enough to take down the Skarmory, Shedinja goes down, and I just get my evasiveness lowered. One more Slash takes down the Skarmory, and then all that's left is the Vileplume, which really can't do that much damage to me. It puts me to sleep, but it's all in vain. Hyper Beam, really not doing too much. Slash, doing well over half, and with one more, I take it down. It only took 8 attempts, but I got past it. Anyway, we move on to the Pyramid, where I run into another Shedinja, which is usually a bit of a problem for challenge runs, but luckily this time I have Shadow Ball to take it down. And we move on to Gorgon, who leads with a Lairon and a Celio. And the thing is that neither of these Pokemon can actually take down Shedinja, so it's safe to set up a Swords Dance here. Unfortunately, Shadow Ball's not enough to take down Celio on a single hit, and both Iron Tail and Aurora Beam do quite a bit of damage to me. I go for Slash and Shadow Ball, which finishes off the Celio, but because they're not using Earthquake because I'm immune to it, they shouldn't protect, but Lairon does for some reason. Okay, I go for Shadow Ball to take down the Slowking. Out comes Ursaring. Lairon uses Iron Tail. I go for Slash and Shadow Ball. Ursaring uses Protect. Lairon uses Protect. Okay, well that's a bit odd, so I use the Stream strategy again. Lairon goes for Protect again. Ursaring would have attacked that turn though. Out comes Primeape, which could take down Shedinja, and the Shadow Balls really aren't doing that much damage to Lairon. I go for Shadow Ball and Slash into the Primeape. Primeape actually goes down in a single slash, and out comes Hypno, which is weak to Shadow Ball. So it goes down in a single turn, with a crit, but I don't think it needed it. And then all that's left is the Lairon, which can't actually hit Shedinja, so I win this battle. It might just take a minute to actually take it down. Never mind, I get a critical hit. Well, with that, we go on to the final area of the game. And I don't really want to spoil it, but I'll just say that the time is not great. So, with that, the first boss that we have a rematch with is Lavrina, who leads with a Gardevoir and a Gorbis. and I go for Protect and Shadow Ball to take down the Gardevoir on the first turn, and to protect myself from being hit by Ice Beam or anything. Attract it uses into Shedinja, which is genderless, so it wouldn't work anyway. I go for Slash to take down Roselia. Out comes Farfetch'd. Another Attract in Shedinja, okay. I go for Slash into Farfetch'd, which doesn't quite take it down, and neither does Shadow Ball. And we both get confused, that's a little unfortunate. Another failed Attract. I go for Slash and Shadow Ball into the Farfetch'd, but because the Ninjask fails, and Shadow Ball doesn't affect Farfetch'd, I get hit, but luckily I survive because of the Focus Band. I go for another Slash, which finishes off the Farfetch'd. Out comes Altaria, and I hit myself in confusion. That's a bit unfortunate. Gorbis actually hits an Attract this time. I go for Slash, and am immobilized by Love. Ice Beam does quite a bit of damage to me. I go for another Slash, hit myself in confusion, and lose the first attempt. Okay, well that's just a bit unfortunate on the second attempt here. The start is practically the same. I go for Shadow Ball to take down the Gardevoir and protect. Out comes Roselia. For some reason the Gorbis just really likes to use Attract into Shedinja, so Gorbis basically isn't a threat at all. Out comes Farfetch'd. Hidden Power into the Farfetch'd to bring it down low enough to have Slash take it down. Unfortunately, it does actually use Attract into Ninjask this time, but because Farfetch'd is such a big threat, I need to take it down first. And then after that, Altaria is the biggest threat, so I decide to double into it. Slash hits through the Infatuation, and it actually decides not to attack Shedinja, so I'm able to take it down with Shadow Ball. And then all that's left is the Gorbis, which it can't hit Shedinja at all, so I'm able to take it down and beat Loverina on the second attempt. Through the building, I run into another Ninjask and take it down. Goodbye, other Ninjask. And at the top of the mountain, I run into Snaddle, who leads with a Matang and a Quagsire. I go for Shadow Ball and Slash to take down the Quagsire on the first turn. And then out comes Scizor. Matang doesn't actually have anything to hit Shedinja with, so it's not a threat whatsoever. I go for Slash and Shadow Ball. It's not enough to take down the Scizor, and it uses Aerial Ace and takes down Shedinja, which is a bit unfortunate because I thought the two of them might be able to take it down. Anyway, another Slash finishes it off, but without having my Shadow Ball, Solrock is a bit of a threat here. And Ice Punch actually freezes me. Okay, well, Shadow Sky gets put up. Thunder Punches, not really doing that much damage, but certainly not helping. I do Frost, go for Slash, not really doing that much to Solrock. It does quite a bit to me. Thunder Punch, Fruity Pebbles. So now the damage is starting to rack up. I go for Fury Cutter just to see how much that'll do, and it's doing about a quarter. So maybe after another one I'd be able to take it down, but I lose. So the plan here is simple. I use Swords Dance on the first turn. Neither of these Pokemon can really do anything to Shedinja, and Ninjask really isn't threatened by anything other than a paralysis from Thunder Punch or Body Slam, or Freeze Chance from Ice Punch, which isn't really that bad. So after a couple Swords Dances, I decide to start taking down his Pokemon. Quagsire goes down in a single slash. Out comes Scizor. Fury Cutter nearly finishes off Matang. And had I known this next slash would actually one-shot Scizor, I would have kept the Fury Cutter going, but I decided to protect to be safe. Out comes Solrock. And Ice Punch. I go for Shadow Ball and Slash into it. Slash doesn't quite finish it off, but Shadow Ball will. And then out comes Castform, which will 100% get one shot by Slash. So I take it down, and then out comes his final Pokemon, which is a Shadow Starmie. But luckily, Shadow Ball comes out and takes it down in a single hit, and then all that's left is the Matang, which just a Slash will do, and we beat Snaddle on the second attempt. So we move on to Ardos, who leads with a Shadow Swallow and an Alakazam. So I decide to use Slash into the Swallow and Shadow Ball into the Alakazam. I don't quite one-shot the Swallow, so it is able to set up Shadow Sky. I go for Shadow Ball though and take down the Alakazam in a single hit. Out comes Kingdra, and Fruity Pebbles come down and destroy Shedinja. Unfortunately, even the Focus Band can't do anything against that. I go for Protect here just to get rid of the Shadow Storm quicker. And then I go for Slash to take down the Swallow because it's definitely a big threat now. Out comes Heracross. Ice Beam comes out doing quite a bit of damage. Fruity Pebbles rain once again. I go for Protect again just to waste the last turn of Fruity Pebbles, which rain down. And I go for Protect again. Okay, that was a misclick. I was clicking too fast. That should definitely have been slash. Anyway, we take the lucky protect, but unfortunately we are going to go down, unless Heracross misses like that. Okay, that's really lucky. Go for another protect here, use slash to take down the Heracross, get to the Electabuzz, which is definitely going to be an issue, and get crit and taken down. Okay, well that's fine. I go into the battle again, I go for slash into the Swellow, hoping for a crit, and it actually uses Shadow Break this time, taking down Shedinja, which is a way worse start. And I get frozen and lose. Okay, well that's unfortunate, but I go into the fight again, which this is now the 6th attempt, and it's pretty obvious what needs to happen. I need Shedinja to live. Or do I? Okay, well this is the final attempt, the one that I win, and as it turns out, the Swellow is actually acting pretty reasonably, because if it attacks on the first turn, it always goes for Shadow Sky on the second, and then it would start using Shadow Half. And now that it's stuck in Shadow Half, it's just going to keep using Shadow Half, which is much more easy to work around. So I'm able to take down the Kingdra, because I Shadow Halfed it. I go for Protect once again, it goes for Shadow Half again, taking Heracross, which is one of the more dangerous Pokemon, all the way down to half of its health, plus the Fruity Pebble damage. So Slash takes it down. And then out comes Electabuzz. Now I hadn't actually gotten the strategy this far, so as you'll see, I'll go between Slash and Protect a couple times before just deciding to take down the Swellow, because it's definitely the bigger threat here. And then out comes Snorlax. And luckily Electabuzz also goes for Shadow Half, having Snorlax's health. Okay, well this is a bit dangerous, but I think I need to take down the Snorlax, and I get a crit and do so. And all that's left is the Electabuzz, which goes down in a single slash, and I beat him. Okay, well that was a little lucky, but we take those. We move on to Gorgon, who leads with a Slowking and an Ursaring. I go for Swords Dance on the first turn, and Shadow Ball to take down the Slowking. And then out comes Aggron, and because I wasn't exactly sure what they were going to do, I went ahead and attacked both, and as it turns out they did the same thing they did in the previous fight. So I'm able to take down one of them, and slash and Shadow Ball into the Walrein because it's definitely much scarier. And the Aggron for some reason just keeps using Protect, which doesn't really make sense, but it's helpful nonetheless. I go for another slash and a Shadow Ball to take down the Mr. Mime that's coming out, so Poliwrath goes down. Mr. Mime comes out, and while it would usually be a threat, Shadow Ball finishes it off, and then all that's left is Aggron, who once again can't hit Shedinja, so we just need to take it down very slowly. So it seems like we're doing about a third every time, but we will win. Slash gets a crit, and Shadow Ball finishes it off. And that's Gorgon, first attempt. We move on to Eldis, who leads with a Shadow Manectric and a Ninjask. Hello, other Ninjask. Anyway, I go for Protect on the first turn, and Slash actually takes down Manectric. Unfortunately, it does have the static ability, so I do tend to get static here. And the Ninjask is going for Aerial Ace. Luckily, it should use Protect on this turn, so it's not too bad right now. It goes for Protect as predicted. Salamence actually goes for Shadow Hold, which is strange. I go for another Slash and Protect to stay alive a little bit longer. Slash isn't enough to take down Salamence. It gets a crit, which is unfortunate. Another Slash and another Shadow Ball to take it down, but it uses Shadow Rush into Shedinja and takes it down. Aerial Ace is doing quite a bit of damage. I am able to take down the Salamence though. Out comes Flygon, and Aerial Ace takes me down. Okay, well, I go back into the battle once again. I go for Protect. I go for Slash to take down the Manectric as before, but this time I don't get paralyzed. Out comes Salamence. Shedinja survives an Aerial Ace. I go for Slash and Shadow Ball to take down the Salamence, which it nearly does with a crit. And Shedinja goes down, but now it's time for the plan of using Swords Dance. And that's because even though Salamence does quite a bit of damage to me, because the Ninjask is going to act predictably now, it's actually worthwhile. So I go for another Swords Dance here. You can go for 3, but unfortunately in the previous attempt I got unlucky and got crit. So I think 2 should be enough. To start my onslaught, I go for Slash to finish off the Salamence, and then out comes Flygon, which isn't nearly as bulky as Salamence. So after a Protect, I go for Slash to take it down, which it does. And then out comes Marowak, which is the most defensive thing he has. And I think there's a small chance I could lose this because of it. I go for Slash, and it's able to take it down. Okay, well that's good. Out comes Lapras. Also very tanky, but definitely not strong enough to survive a Slash. And then all that's left is the Ninjask. Another Slash, but it stalls with Protect, so one last Slash finishes it off. And it gets a crit. Nice. Anyway, we move on to the big box legendary, Shedinja. And I go for Protect on the first turn, and Slash. Slash really isn't doing that much damage, and Aeroblast is actually doing quite a bit. Shadow Ball and Slash to try to take it down in a single turn, but it outspeeds and takes down Shedinja. So another Slash, not quite enough to take it down. Shadow Storm comes out, doing quite a bit more damage, but one more Slash finishes it off, and we move on to the final fight against Greevil. He leads with a Shadow Rhydon and a Shadow Moltres. I use Slash doing about a third to Moltres. I get burnt and taken down with Shadow End. Okay, well at this point I decide to go ahead and teach Shadow Ball to Ninjask because it is going to be its single strongest move. I go for Swords Dance on the first turn, and because I am so weak, usually they're going to attack the Shedinja, and I go ahead and use 2 Protects in a row, which is a little bit lucky because the second one's only a 50% chance. Now I go for Slash to take down the Moltres, and I use Shadow Ball to take down the Rhydon. I'm able to take down the Moltres. Out comes Executor, and then Shadow Ball doesn't quite take down the Rhydon, but luckily it missed the Shadow End. I go for Protect on both. That way Shedinja stays alive and Ninjask can heal a little bit. And I'm racking my brain around what to do next because I haven't actually gotten Shedinja to be this far in the fight before. Usually it's taken down prior to this. So eventually I come to just Shadow Ball to take down the Executor and to take down the Rhydon. And then out comes the first legendary bird, Articuno. And the thing is, Tauros is either going to immediately take down the Shedinja or it's going to use Shadow Sky. I think it might just take down the Shedinja, so I go ahead and Protect. I take the Articuno out, and then out comes Zapdos. Unfortunately, Tauros does go for Shadow Sky, immediately taking down Shedinja. But that's alright, I'm strong enough to be able to take down the Zapdos in a single hit. And then all that's left is the Tauros, who wastes his last turn using Shadow Hold before being taken down with Slash. And with that, the Nincada line has beaten the game, so let's go over its stats. It beat the game at a time of 18 hours, 28 minutes, and 30 seconds, with a total of 52 feints, and Ninjask was level 85, and Shedinja level 65. Now, you might realize that there's a 20 level discrepancy between the two, and that's just because throughout the game, Shedinja feints a lot. There's so many Pokemon that it just does not match up well against, and many Pokemon that just kind of surprise you with random coverage moves, like the Electrode with Thief. I didn't know it had that, so it has very specific coverage options that you wouldn't normally see otherwise on many Pokemon. So Ninjask really has to pick up the slack, and on top of that, leveling up these Pokemon is incredibly slow because of the erratic leveling group that it's in. So it really felt like I had to constantly be leveling up, otherwise I'd fall behind. And while they do get really decent supporting moves like Baton Pass and Swords Dance, their actual attacking moves are pretty bad. They get Slash and Shadow Ball, which are pretty decent, but Aerial Ace is so far into Mount Battle that's not even worth getting. Giga Drain I still don't know where it's at, Solar Beam's not great, and Dig is locked behind level 45 Nincada, which definitely isn't worth it. I did think that this line got Silverwind because the fight against Eldis, but apparently that's only an egg move you can get by breeding it with another Pokemon, so I don't even get that. Anyway, with all that being said, with such a terrible time and many losses, it finds itself in the D tier with fellow Pokemon Ariados and Tangela, which is honestly kind of surprising because I really thought that having 2 Pokemon would make such a huge difference in how easy the game would be, but because they're both trying to take experience from each other, they're constantly fighting, and being in the slowest leveling up group really doesn't help that either. However, without Shedinja, Ninjask really can't set up Swords Dance effectively because of its frailty, but having Shedinja really allows it to do that and actually get through some of the fights much easier than it would have been alone. Anyway, with that being said, thank you so much for watching. If you have any Pokemon suggestions, please put them down below. If you did enjoy this video, consider liking and subscribing, and bye!